When severe weather strikes, seconds matter. Grayson County Emergency Management Director Sarah Summers is going to share with us why severe weather warnings, not just tornado warnings, save lives. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. Once again, we are joined this morning with Sarah Summers, Emergency Management Director for Grayson County. Thanks for being here this morning.
Thanks for having me.
And so a lot of people don't know what an emergency management director coordinator does. And so we're going to dive into that this morning, but understand that she leads our emergency management operations here for Grayson County. She coordinates emergency management and disaster management mitigation, preparedness, response recovery efforts. You ensure safety and security through the county's residents and businesses by coordinating efforts through the different departments, not just with the county here, Grayson County, but also with state as well and federal.
And with our 16 cities who are all participate in our one emergency management plan so that we work well together.
And so basically, when it comes to emergency management, you are almost just you've got your fingers in everything, just making sure that everything flows properly so that nothing falls off the board and everything gets utilized properly and efficiently.
I think emergency management is good for people like me who get bored easily because there's always something to work on. This time of year we have storms. Other parts of the year we may be working on school safety or just overall mitigation, how we can build our environments better and our homes better so that we can be safer during weather events and other things. So it's a lot of work, but it's very, very interesting.
Yes, I can only imagine. And there's so many different aspects, just like we just covered, right? There's so many different things to take into consideration. And you know, it's funny you mentioned weather. So just last night, we're filming this today, just last night we had a major weather issue move through, lots of hail, and I'm sure there's going to be some damage this morning. And so I know that there were some severe weather alerts that went out from your office about that. So just kind of keeping people aware of that. So let's dive into some questions. So from your perspective, as the emergency management coordinator and director for Grayson County operations, what are some of the most important things that you hope Grayson County residents are doing to be prepared, especially when it comes to weather-related issues?
There are a lot of things, but there's some really simple things that I think could help people keep themselves and their families and property all much safer. One is just pay attention to the weather. We've got weather outside. It's easy to look outside. What is harder is to know what's coming in the next 4 hours, 6 hours, 12 hours. And we would like people to start thinking in terms of that. So before they decide to drive somewhere in a car, to be paying attention to weather forecasts. And it's important to know that weather forecasting, the experts for us in our nation, our entire nation, is the National Weather Service. All of the infrastructure that supports all weather forecasting really works through those federal assets. So we really want people to be paying attention to the people who are trained and have all of the best information all of the time. And so we work hand in hand with the National Weather Service. The office we work with is in Fort Worth, Dallas. We literally work through an app where they give us minute-to-minute information. And our local broadcasters work with us in what we call an integrated warning team. And so the people you're used to seeing on our local TV stations and the meteorologists who work there are also in that chat with us. So last night when we're all looking at the weather and we had so many hailstorms passing through our area one after another. We worked on the warning together with people at the National Weather Service, with our local broadcast community, with storm spotters, with representatives from all 16 cities who have their, what I say, their finger on the trigger of the outdoor warning sirens in our community. And so that's the way we do the best we can to get warnings crafted appropriately for our area. So instead of following Joe Bob weather on social media, we hope that you pay attention to official sources like the National Weather Service, and they have a very helpful presence across all social media platforms. We also have social media where we rebroadcast the warnings that are crafted in our work with National Weather Service. And it's important to remember that you need to be receiving your warnings from multiple sources. So we do have a warning service in Grayson County. We have that's free to all of our residents in the unincorporated area and all 16 of our cities. You can go on our website and sign up for Code Red weather warnings. And so making sure you have access to warnings information if your TV goes out, if your internet service goes out, what are the different ways? And one of the best ways to get a backup warning for the warnings that are issued is through the old-fashioned weather radios. We call them all hazards radios now because we use them to broadcast wildfire evacuation warnings and all kinds of things. So all of those tools are important to have in your pocket, but use them all.
Excellent advice, and that is so true, right? Having multiple assets available to you and your family, so that in an emergency, when the power goes out and you're no longer able to use the TV, or you're not able to stream, or you're not able to charge your phone and your phone's dead, then now what? And so bringing up those radios, and that's just going back to the basics, if you will. So with the different types of severe weather warnings, what do you think, can you explain those and what Grayson County residents can expect from those, or what they should pay attention to, or how they should react to those when they receive them?
I think one of the important things to remember, particularly about the Code Red calls that are issued immediately via a satellite feed from the National Weather Service, is that you sign up yourself and you enroll yourself and you choose what warnings you want to receive. And so there's an option to receive flash flood warnings and severe thunderstorm warnings and tornado warnings. It's interesting to me, not just what people choose to receive warnings for, but which ones they pay attention to.
Mm. So, I guess what do you see out of that as far as what they choose to pay attention to and what they don't?
We had a tornado in our northwestern reaches of our county in an area known as Sherwood Shores in 2022. And one of the things we learned from the residents when we were doing damage assessments and beginning the recovery process was that folks were confused about whether they really needed to take precautions, because the first alert they received was a severe thunderstorm warning. And they said, we didn't get the tornado warning until the tornado was practically right on top of us. And that does happen sometimes. I asked some of those residents who did shelter, when did you shelter? And they said, when we realized it was worse than just a severe thunderstorm. And that struck fear in my heart, honestly, Jeremy. I think what's important to remember is that severe thunderstorms in Texas can be as deadly and are as deadly as tornadoes. We're talking 800, 100 mile per hour straight line winds. Everybody worries about property damage from hail, but if you find yourself out in your boat in a hailstorm, you might get some body damage to yourself, not just your boat. So it's something we ask people to pay attention to. And all the things you would do when a tornado's coming, you need to be doing the same thing when a severe thunderstorm warning is issued. I think one of the other areas of confusion, and it happened this week in Grayson County, is that we tend to think of weather coming through and then going on out. And those are the perfect storms, right? One wave, so to speak. But the weather that came through here this week came in waves, one wave after another. And there were severe thunderstorm warnings issued, and consequently code red calls going out to various areas as they were mapped as the hazardous area by the National Weather Service, just on top of each other. It's like a choo-choo train that never stops. And so it was exhausting for us working the storms, but it really worries me because I'm afraid those of us who are interested in weather, that people are ready to go out and see what happened to their car, what happened to their house, and meanwhile another storm system's coming through. And sometimes, like in 2022, we talk to people about receiving those code red warnings right on top of each other and like a train. And they start thinking that they're just repeat warnings, and it's because they didn't take the call. They knew what it was, so they just ignored it. And so they think it's just the system calling them back, when actually it's a greater warning that's being offered to you to pay attention to what's happening and go into your safe place. So I think that's what tornadoes are big and scary. I'd like to say it's kind of the sexier side of the weather that we see. People don't like wind, they don't like hail, and they tend to think more about property damage when we talk about those storms coming, but they can kill people.
Absolutely. And so paying attention to those things and actually paying attention to them and not just dismissing them when they come. Yes, absolutely. So you mentioned tornadoes being the sexier side of weather, and while tornado warnings are well known, what other severe weather warnings should citizens be particularly aware of?
The one we get the least response to, the warning that's issued that people don't pay attention to, and you may remember this from your days out on the street with a police department, are flood warnings.
Yes.
It's very frustrating to us because we take getting those issued very seriously, because driving through water that's standing or walking through it is incredibly dangerous. And the little known fact, while we talk about being in Tornado Alley in Grayson County, floods are our biggest hazard, and they cause the greatest and most money damage to us in our county.
And it's probably, for those who are aware of it, it's yes, that's obvious. But to those who don't pay particular attention to it, the person who's not seeing it firsthand, when those events strike, they might not realize that, right? And again, because we're in Tornado Alley, that's what you think about, but nobody talks about the fact that there is way more flooding that happens all through Grayson County than tornadoes.
I think the scary thing is, we have 980 square miles in this county, about 40 of water. And when the floods come, the part of water increases. And we have lots of country roads with no light on them. And one of the things you can't tell when it's dark is how deep water is. You cannot.
Yeah.
And that's where water rescues become a thing for us on those nights. I think the thing that has always surprised me the most in this work, and I still get surprised by it, is that we spend a lot of time having county crews go out and put barricades for our safety on county roadways.
Yes.
And not only do people drive around them, they get out of the cars and throw them in the ditch so that the person coming behind them don't realize that we tried to warn them.
Yes. And, you know, you think about that situation where the individual who potentially may have done that may have had a vehicle that they thought was sufficient enough to get through there, but the person behind them might not, right? Or that water may increase in depth beyond what they're seeing. And so, you know, they've thrown that away, and it's probably gotten picked up by floodwaters, and now it's gone somewhere. And they just don't realize that, or they just don't care. So kind of playing off of the idea of, somebody's on a road and they're, throwing away those road warning barricades and things like that. That's personal responsibility can take many forms. Whether you're taking responsibility for yourself, but then sometimes personal responsibility can affect others. And so, here in Grayson County, and of course all throughout the United States, individuals taking responsibility for themselves takes many forms. And a lot of times we think of families, right? So an individual family unit being responsible for themselves and their personal safety, in the sense of an emergency, being more emergency prepared. Or what steps can individuals or families take to be prepared for the various types of severe weather emergencies that they may face here in Grayson County?
I think I want to focus on weather, first of all, right now, because of the time of year we're in. If you're a parent who's teaching a child how to drive and signing off on that parent-taught driver's ed that some of us have done, I'd ask you to have your own chapter on weather preparedness and weather awareness. When we have teenage leadership groups come through here on tours, we talk to them about, you got your driver's license, you got your phone, you're pretty excited about it. What do you do to think about what the weather might be like when you get in your car to go somewhere on a weekend night? And most teenagers say, I don't do that.
Yeah.
So we encourage them when they're touring our facilities to sign up for Code Red as well. But I think that there is a responsibility of those bringing these children up to talk to them about the kinds of hazards they might run into, and for them to pay attention and look at it. And also say, no, let's hang the keys up tonight. This isn't a good night to go out and about. One of my other concerns are we have many, many people living in trailers and in manufactured homes. And the people in those types of structures are not safe during severe weather. End of sentence. There is no safe place in a manufactured home or a trailer. So we ask that people who live in those take extra precautions to watch the forecast and prepare early to be somewhere else. If we're under a tornado watch, is a good time to think, this is a night I need to go stay with a friend or someone with a storm cellar. It's just not safe. And so they have to take actions long before some of the conventional warnings are issued to change what they plan to do and where they plan to be.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's paying attention to those warnings as they're coming in and knowing your situation and taking heed, factoring all those things in and just knowing that you're going to have to allot more time.
Right.
All right. So, Sarah, you've dedicated a good portion of your life to emergency management. Mm-hmm. What keeps you up at night?
The things we've been talking about that we can't emphasize enough, that if you aren't paying attention, it doesn't matter how long we work and how many warnings we issue and how many barricades we put out and how many ways we contact you by your phone. If your phone isn't charged the night that we have severe weather and it's your only communication device, or if you drive your family into water that's rising. I sometimes joke, and it's not very funny, but we work very, very hard on getting the right warnings issued for the right areas of our county. We've come a long way from the days when they just issue a severe thunderstorm warning for the whole county, and folks would be like, that isn't really affecting me. So they really stop paying attention. So we really try to craft those warnings to be meaningful. But if folks don't pay attention and take precautions, they're going to get hurt. And so I was saying, sometimes I joke, well, once the warning has been issued for that particular storm, our job is done until it's time for cleanup. So we have to sit back and wait a minute. And very often during those times, I know there are a lot of people in our county who join me in praying for help during those hard times and when there's more than we can handle ourselves. And so I often sit back and pray that everyone in Grayson County is paying attention to the warnings and taking cover.
All excellent points, all excellent advice. Any final thoughts for the podcast today?
Just remember that we do give the weather warnings free via Code Red, so it's available to sign up for on the Grayson County website and all of our cities' websites, as well as they're partners with us in that endeavor. And while you're signing yourself up, maybe help an elderly neighbor who doesn't have the internet and needs some help doing those kinds of things. Or your teenager could get signed up before they actually get that driver's license.
Excellent advice. Excellent advice. So, again, thank you for joining us today on the Grayson County Sheriff's Office podcast. And we, again, thank Sarah for joining us.
Thank you.
And it was a pleasure. And we're going to be not just focusing on the Sheriff's Office on this podcast, but we're going to be opening this up to all kinds of different departments all throughout Grayson County to just kind of let you know what the Grayson County government is doing for you. So, again, join us here every Thursday at 9 a.m. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow. Share it with your friends. And we'll see you next time. Stay safe, Grayson County.